UFC Fight Night Luque versus Dos Anjos is this weekend. I'm going to give you a full card prediction and breakdown of all 13 fights on this entire card, starting with Julianna Miller versus Luana Santos. And if you know anything about Julianna Miller, you know she's a elite level female fighter coming up in the UFC. Her last loss against Veronica Hardy put on a crazy performance, and I guess Hardy kind of just fluked a win there. No, Miller is not that great of a fighter. She is still relatively young, 27 years of age, was on The Ultimate Fighter, won that one against Brogan Walker, won that one by KO. I think I was one of the few people to predict that. I don't really care, honestly. Her last fight looked pretty bad against Veronica Hardy. Luana Santos actually has more experience than her, 5-1, 6 fights overall, professional fights. Julianna Miller 3-2. She's going to be younger than Julianna Miller, and I think she has looked a little bit better than Julianna Miller. Julianna Miller was really just rolling around in her last fight, and I don't know. I'm just going to go with Luana Santos. This one could easily go the other way, sadly, which, I mean, it's just lower level women's MMA. So I'm going to go Luana Santos, probably by decision. Up the card, we have Blackshear versus Jose Johnson. I believe this card, not this card, I believe this matchup was made pretty last second. I think someone pulled out of the fight against Blackshear. I think it was, who was it? Brady Heastan that actually pulled out of the fight. And so they made this matchup. Yeah, it was supposed to be Brady Heastan versus Blackshear. But Jose Johnson comes in and fills in for this one. Jose Johnson, if you don't remember him, it was about a year ago when he did fight Jack Cartwright on the Contender Series. A lot of people thought Cartwright was going to win that matchup. I thought he was. He's a pretty good prospect coming into that matchup. And honestly, Jose Johnson actually looked pretty good in there. But I think Blackshear, solid on the feet. I think Jose Johnson will be better, of course, but I think Blackshear, really good takedowns, did a really good job against Luana Lacerda, staying out of some really good submission attempts from Luana Lacerda. Like you saw Luana Lacerda, I guess his whole career outside the UFC, inside the UFC, he has some really, he's a really good jiu-jitsu guy. I'll just say that. He's a good BJJ guy. He can lock anybody up, and Blackshear really impressed me in that matchup against Luana Lacerda, staying out of those bad positions, especially of how dominant of a wrestler he is. And I even said, like, I believe when Luana Lacerda fought Stamen, I'm like, if Staten attempts a takedown here and gets him on the ground, it is going to be very dangerous for him. Said the same thing about Blackshear, and Blackshear took him down with ease, did stay out. I guess he did get caught in a couple good submission attempts from Lacerda, but was able to finish the fight, KO Luana Lacerda on the ground there. But I think he does beat Jose Johnson. Jose Johnson good on the feet, but I think Blackshear is just going to mix in his work here, attempt some takedowns and mix up on the feet, and make it a little bit harder for Jose Johnson to get into his flow a little bit more here. They're both relatively young, under 30 years of age, 29 years of age for Blackshear, 28 years of age for Jose Johnson, who is a relatively big guy too, coming in for 135 here. I think he's 6 foot, so we'll see how he does on the weight cut, but I am going to go with Blackshear. I think he'll just mix in his work a little bit better. Brady Heastan is not that great of a striker. I mean, he's still kind of working on it, but he's more of a wrestler, so maybe Blackshear was kind of prepared for that and was working on his stand-up game, and Jose Johnson, a really good stand-up fighter with decent groundwork. So I guess there's some give and take here, but I am going to go with Blackshear. I don't think he gets the finish. This one will probably go to a decision. Up the card, we have Montserrat Ruiz versus Jaqueline Amorim. And I think I'm going to go with Jaqueline Amorim. Her last fight, she lost to Sam Hughes, but actually looked decent in that matchup on the feet before getting pretty much controlled on the ground. Montserrat Ruiz hasn't fought in 2 years, lost to Amanda Lemos by KO relatively early, beat Cheyenne Velismas 2 years and 4 months ago. So Montserrat Ruiz hasn't fought in a while. I think Amorim is solid. I think she can do pretty well on the feet, and that's who I'm just going to go with here. I mean, it's lower level women's MMA, 6.5 inch reach advantage. I like that. I think she's a little bit more skilled on the feet. We'll see what happens, though, but I do think Amorim does win this one. Tapology says 70% for Amorim, 30% for Ruiz. I believe 52% by submission for Amorim here. She could probably get the sub here. Maybe, I don't know. It's lower levels of women's MMA. I hate watching and predicting these fights, but I'm just going to go with Amorim. Maybe she gets the finish a little bit in the second or third round of this matchup. That's where I'll probably go with. I'm not sure if she finishes on the feet or on the ground, but up the card, we have Josh Parisian versus Martin Buday, and I'm going to go with Martin Buday in this one. Martin Buday has actually looked pretty impressive in a lot of his matchups in the UFC. The matchup against Lucas Bresky, he probably should have lost that one. Won by split decision. Beat Chris Barnett by technical decision. I believe he did like a grounded knee Chris Barnett, so they just went to a decision. I think it was like past the second round or whatever, so they automatically make it go to a decision because Chris Barnett was not doing very well. He's kind of just holding him against the fence and doing damage there. Did well against Jake Collier as well, won that one by decision, but Josh Parisian's coming off a loss to Jamal Pogues, beat Alan Buday by KO, lost to Don'Tale Mayes by KO, and then lost to Parker Porter by decision. So, I mean, if you're losing to Don'Tale Mayes, especially by finish, you're losing to Parker Porter, the bigger Parker Porter as well by decision. Jamal Pogues actually looks solid, so I don't really mind him losing that matchup, but he is the older fighter here at 34 years of age. I guess it doesn't matter too much at heavyweight, but Martin Buday is not that bad. If you're losing to Don'Tale Mayes and Parker Porter, I think a guy like Buday, who has some decent wins over, I guess, that similar level of competition, I think he can get it done here against Josh Parisian. Maybe he gets the finish, but he really just has a style where he's kind of just going to be a little bit more technical. He's going to hold you against the fence. He's willing to make it boring just so he gets the win. So I think anyway, Martin Buday wants, I think it'll probably be by decision. Probably hold him against the fence, makes it a little bit more technical on the feet. Maybe goes in for a takedown or two. So I'm going to go with Buday. 95% predicted here for Buday from Tapology. 17% by KO, 74% by decision. I'm going to stay with Buday in this one. Up the card, we have Francis Marshall versus Isaac Dulgarian. Isaac Dulgarian hasn't fought in a year and 5 months. I believe he was on looking for a fight against TJ Britton, who's a very, very tall guy, especially for featherweight. And I think this one's going to be a very interesting matchup. Francis Marshall is coming off a loss to William Gomez by split decision, beat Marcelo Rojo by KO, which is a pretty good win there, and then beat Connor Matthews on the Contender Series, and I thought Connor Matthews was going to beat him there. So really impressed me on the Contender Series. Really impressed me after that against Marcelo Rojo. 24 years of age, though. He's going to keep getting better here. But Isaac Dulgarian is a very, very good fighter. I think the year and a half off is really going to help him here. He's 27 years of age right now. And I think when you're that young and just looking at how impressive he was on the regionals, I think he had, let me see, TJ Britton, round 1, 1:13. All of these are under like 3 minutes of fight time. Like, it's absolutely insane. Ray Ostrander, arm triangle choke, 2 minutes and 49 seconds into the round, 35 seconds into the round against Jesse Ebrich. Marquise Moody, 1 minute and 45 seconds. Sam Hernandez, 2 minutes and 18 seconds. And very similar on his amateur results too. So very good fighter in Isaac Dulgarian. I think Francis Marshall didn't look too great against William Gomez. He's kind of out of range with a lot of his shots. It didn't seem like he landed too many. I think Dulgarian can get this one done, but I think plus 155 is some good odds as well. I'm kind of interested as to why Francis Marshall is the favorite here, but I guess it's probably because Isaac Dulgarian doesn't have too much experience. He's 5-0, and he hasn't fought recently. So I am going to edge this one to Isaac Dulgarian. Maybe he does get the finish, but I am going to go with him in this matchup. Up the card, we have Terrance McKinney versus Mike Breeden, and I think I am going to go with Terrance McKinney here. I think he is taking this fight on short notice as well, coming off of 2 losses against Nazim Sadikov and Ismail Bonfim, both very technical fighters, but he has lost to them both by finish. For then, beat Eric Gonzalez by submission, beat Drew Dober by KO. I think he took that fight on short notice as well. Looked really good early on against Drew Dober. Beat Frezion by submission, then he beat Matt Frivola early on by KO. I think it's like a 6-second KO. Mike Breeden, last fight was a decision loss to Natan Levy, which isn't the best of looks. Lost to Alexander Hernandez by KO as well in the first round. So for this one, I guess Mike Breeden isn't horrible. I think as this fight goes on, he's definitely going to have the advantage because of Terrance McKinney coming in on short notice. But I think Terrance McKinney is looking kind of get back on his feet here. I think him taking this short notice fight wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing either. He did look decent against Nazim Sadikov, tried to slow it down a little bit more, try to make it a little bit more technical. But I think he really just needs to go out against Mike Breeden, who is a more patient guy on the feet, who isn't the most technical guy like a Ismail Bonfim or Nazim Sadikov, and kind of just walk him down. Use his explosiveness and maybe look for a takedown, try and drop him, finish him like he has been doing when he has been getting wins against like a Frezion, Matt Frivola. Even Drew Dober, he looked pretty explosive early on and landed some really good shots on him, rocked Drew Dober early on in that fight. And the same thing kind of with Eric Gonzalez. So I think that's what he kind of needs to go back to. He kind of got away with that a little bit more against Ismail Bonfim and Nazim Sadikov, but I think Breeden is a very good opponent for McKinney to get kind of back on his feet. But as this fight goes on, definitely going to favor Breeden here. The narrative kind of around McKinney was that he didn't really have a gas tank with these fights, but now it's more of Terrance McKinney cannot stand with, or at least hang with these more technical fighters. So it is kind of worrying what his conditioning could look like in this matchup, but he is going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage. I think he just needs to go back to his old ways. Like, just go out there, walk him down, be the more explosive guys, hurt him early on, maybe look for a takedown and try and submit him there. So I think that's what Terrance McKinney's got to do here. 95% pick rate for Terrance McKinney on Tapology, 69% by KO. I think that's probably about right. If not, probably knocks him down and finishes him by sub in the first round as well. So I think first round finish here for Terrance McKinney is probably pretty good here. Minus 260 favorite, so maybe you could get some good odds if you do say like a finish in the first round, but I do think it ends in the first round. If not, I think you kind of got to get a little bit, if you're a Terrance McKinney fan, you're probably going to get worried if this fight goes out of the first round. So I am to go with Terrance McKinney by first round finish in this one. Up the card, we have Marcus McGhee versus JP Buys, and I do not like this matchup for JP Buys at all. He's obviously been through a lot of stuff. Went down the flyweight, lost to Cody Durden by KO, and I mean, now he's back up to bantamweight. He took about a year off after that one, and he got KO'd by Cody Durden, which isn't really a good look. Went to a decision with Montel Jackson, which isn't necessarily bad, but took a lot of damage in that one, and got KO'd by Bruno Silva as well. So he's coming on a 3-loss streak here. It looks like if he loses this one, he might get cut from the UFC. I know he had a really bad ACL injury, I think, and now he's coming back against a guy in Marcus McGhee who's very talented. I believe took the Journey Newsom fight on short notice and looked pretty impressive there. Ended up winning by rear naked choke against him. So I don't know. I think Marcus McGhee, I think he did have a camp for this matchup. I think Marcus McGhee will probably KO him here. I think JP Buys obviously has good wrestling, but Marcus McGhee is pretty decent on the ground as well, and I don't think JP Buys can put him in bad spots early on. Maybe he does have some really good success early on in this matchup, but I think as the fight goes on, probably the early rounds, first or second, like late first, early second, maybe mid-second round, I think Marcus McGhee can get the KO here. JP Buys doesn't have the best of chins, and I don't know, man. I really don't like this matchup for him. Marcus McGhee, really good gym he trains out of. Same thing with JP Buys. He hangs around with like your Aljamains, he does, or at least used to train at Extreme Couture. I don't know if he's still training over there, but I know he does train with the Longo guys quite a bit. So I think, yeah, it's not I think. I'm pretty sure McGhee will win this one. I feel really bad for JP Buys, but 92% pick rate. The 8% picking Buys are very, very I don't know. I'm surprised there's 8% of people picking him here, but we'll see what happens. 92% for McGhee, 79% by KO. I think that's probably the pick to make here. Let's move on. Up the card, we have Josh Fremd versus Jamie Pickett. I think I am going to go with Josh Fremd, especially after his last performance against Rodriguez Dumas. I thought Dumas was going to beat him. Beat Dumas by submission. I thought Dumas was probably going to KO him. After Dumas lost that fight, I think he started taking his career seriously and won his next one. So I mean, it's pretty unfortunate for like pick wise. I was not expecting Fremd to actually beat him there, but before then got brutally choked out by Tresean Gore. It looked like Tresean Gore almost like tried to kill him. Like it was brutal, very brutal guillotine choke there. Lost to Anthony Hernandez, which isn't a bad loss to necessarily happen. Those are his fights in the UFC. Went over Sadiqa Dumas. Tresean Gore loss isn't the best looking, but the loss against Anthony Hernandez is not bad at all, especially by decision. Jamie Pickett's last 3 fights, lost to Bo Nickel, kind of got taken down due to like a groin shot, which, I mean, kind of sucks as in like any matchup. I mean, that's really the only reason why Bo Nickel kind of got the takedown. I was expecting Bo Nickel to win anyways. He has looked impressive after the matchup, but it really does suck for Jamie Pickett there. Lost to Dennis Tululin by KO, and then lost to Kyle Daukaus by Darts choke. Before then beat Joseph Holmes, which isn't the best of fighters, and then beat Luana Starpoli. I think I'm going to try to say that name correctly, but losses to Kyle Daukaus I don't really like, especially by submission. If you're looking to a Daukaus brother, I'm sorry. I guess Kyle Daukaus didn't look too bad early on, but most recently he's definitely picking up a lot of losses. Dennis Tululin isn't necessarily a bad fighter, but I mean, I think Dennis Tululin's kind of staying here. He hasn't looked too impressive after that matchup. And then Bo Nickel obviously is Bo Nickel. So Jamie Pickett, I think, is losing to a certain level of fighter. I guess he's beating Joseph Holmes, which I don't think he's that good of a fighter anyways. But I think Josh Fremd has more on the feet and more on the ground here than a Jamie Pickett. Jamie Pickett is a very big dude. We'll have, a 3.5-inch reach advantage in this matchup, but he's 34 years of age, almost 35. Josh Fremd will be 29 years of age. I am going to go with the younger fighter here. I think Josh Fremd does win this one, especially after his last matchup against Nchukwi Dumas. He looked very impressive there. I think he can continue to have some success. 91% pick rate for Tapology here for Josh Fremd, 63% by submission. I think he does end up getting the finish over Jamie Pickett here, either by submission or finish. Again, one of these fights where I don't know necessarily where Josh Fremd can win this one, because I feel like he can probably finish him on the feet and then ground and pound him on the ground, or get the submission here, or maybe he gets the takedown, just ground and pounds him on the ground. But I feel like it could go either way there, but I do see Josh Fremd finishing Jamie Pickett in this one. Up the card, we have Tafon Nchukwi versus AJ Dobson. I am going to go with AJ Dobson. His couple losses in the UFC, he was on the Contender Series. He beat Hashim Arkhaga by submission due to rear naked choke. A loss to Jacob Malkoun, which isn't necessarily a bad loss to have. Malkoun made it pretty close with Brendan Allen. You can see what Brendan Allen's doing right now. He's definitely rising up through middleweight at this point. So Armen Petrosian, I think, is a pretty good stand-up fighter. He kind of hanged in there a little bit. Petrosian ended up winning that one by decision. Tafon and Nchukwi lost to Carlos Oberg by KO, which is... Oberg's a very good fighter, so I mean, that is that, but that was about a year ago. Lost to Azmat Mirzakhanov by KO as well. So he's getting KO'd, coming off a couple KOs. I don't think he's going to be the most active guy on the feet here. I think I can see AJ Dobson being the more technical fighter here. Tafon Nchukwi isn't the biggest guy either. Well, he's 6 foot, but it seems like whenever he's fighting some of these other guys, he does look relatively smaller. 1 inch reach advantage, 28 years of age. AJ Dobson will be a little bit older, but I think he's just going to be the more technical guy on the feet. I don't know. I can see him piecing up Nchukwi in this matchup. I think this one probably goes to a decision. Maybe he does get the finish, though. I think he did hang in there with Petrosian. Loss to Malkoun isn't bad. So I think Dobson, being the more technical fighter, just out-techniques Nchukwi. This matchup, I can't see his last name. And after a couple KO losses, I'm not expecting Nchukwi to necessarily take too many risks in this one. So I am going to go with Dobson. Probably by finish. I can see this one going to a decision as well. 65% picked on Tapology, 35% for Nchukwi here. But I'm relatively comfortable with Dobson in this matchup. Up the card, we have Polyana Viana versus Iasmin Lucindo. I am going to go with Iasmin Lucindo. I think this one's a very interesting fight, though. Polyana Viana coming off a very good KO against Juju Frey. Absolutely put her out cold there. Kind of just walked her down and just landed some great punches on her. Lost to Tabitha Ritchie in a pretty weird matchup in general. Beat Mallory Martin by submission. Beat Emily Whitmer by submission as well. So, and then beat Veronica Hardy by submission about 4 years ago. Iasmin Lucindo beat Broken Walker, who's not that good of a fighter, but Iasmin Uruguay I thought was a pretty good prospect coming up in that division, but I mean, she just lost to Denise Gomes in her last fight and got KO'd in that one. So, I mean, Lucindo kind of just held along in there. Did pretty well against a very technical fighter in Uruguay in that matchup. So I think Lucindo against a fighter in Viana who doesn't really move her head too much will kind of just go forward against you. She does train, I believe, with the Oliveira team, the Lima team. So she does kind of have that style where she'll just walk forward and land some really good shots on you. And she has some really good power in her hands. So we'll see how that one goes in this one, because they both have some really good power. But I think Lucindo kind of just playing off the back foot a little bit more here can land the better shots. I think she will be at a 1 inch reach disadvantage here. 21 years of age, 31 years of age for Viana. So she's going to be at 10-year advantage here. I guess Viana is in the prime age range and Lucindo's still very young. So I think Lucindo can definitely make quite a bit of improvement. She did look really good against Brogan Walker. So I'm going to go with Viana. Viana doesn't have the best of wins in her career. She lost to Tabitha Ritchie by decision, which I guess it was a pretty weird matchup anyways, but did KO Juju Frey, finished Mallory Martin. Yeah, I mean, they're not that impressive wins. Lost to Veronica Hardy. So I am going to go Lucindo. This is a pretty close fight, though. 60% picked by Tapology for Viana. I think this one could definitely go either way here, but I am going to side with Lucindo. I think she just has better performances against higher level competition than Viana does. So up the card, we have Khalil Rountree versus Chris Daukaus. And now I'm going to go with Khalil Rountree. Chris Daukaus is moving down from light heavyweight. Going to be slimming down a little bit more here, which I think is a good move, but I think against the wrong guy in Khalil Rountree. Khalil Rountree has some really good power in his hands, and I think could really mess up Chris Daukaus quite a bit. But let me say this. I saw someone say this online. I believe Khalil Rountree, or not Khalil Rountree, but the bookies have gone 0-9 in the last 9 fights of Khalil Rountree when making odds for him. And he's the favorite in this matchup. So, I mean, I don't see Chris Daukaus winning this fight. But, I mean, that's just a very interesting stat, in my opinion. I kind of double-checked it as well. I think one of these fights he went in as even odds according to Tapology here. But I think Dustin Jacoby, he was an underdog. Roberson, he was an underdog. Bukowskis, he was an underdog. I think that one might have been the evens. But, no, he was an underdog. I think... There's one of these where it was where he was evens. He's a heavy favorite against Prashnia, lost that one. Kudalaba, he was evens, so I guess the bookies still kind of got that one wrong. I guess you can kind of omit that one anyways, but 0-9 is still pretty crazy, especially for predictions here. Even what Johnny Walker, I think he was the favorite against Johnny Walker and lost that matchup. So bookies are 0-9 when creating odds for Khalil Rountree, and he's the favorite against Chris Daukaus. So keep that in mind when you're betting here. I don't think it makes really a difference. Chris Daukaus will have a 2 injury advantage. They're both 33 years of age, but again, Chris Daukaus, you haven't really seen too much impressive stuff from at heavyweight, so I'm not expecting him to look that good at light heavyweight against a guy like Khalil Rountree, which Chris Daukaus probably should have started at light heavy. We probably should have lost all that weight early on. But I think Khalil Rountree wins this one probably by KO. He's been getting KO'd by a lot of these heavyweights. Jairzinho Rosenstrike by KO, Curtis Blades by KO, and then Derek Lewis by KO. So 3 very brutal KOs. I don't mind this move, but it's just against the wrong guy in my opinion. 90% picked for Tapology here, 86% of that by KO. So the card we have Cub Swanson versus Hakeem Dawodu. I am going to go with Hakeem Dawodu. In his last matchup, he did lose to Julianna Rosa by decision, beat Michael Trizano by decision. Lost to Mavzar Evloyev, did have like a good round and a half in that matchup. So there's that against a top guy, and Mavzar Evloyev like a top 10, top 15 guy. Beat Zurair Tukagov by split decision. Beat Julio Arce by split decision as well. Cub Swanson went down to bantamweight against Jonathan Martinez and lost that one. I think he got leg kicked and pretty much got finished from there. Beat Darren Elkins by KO before that, about a year and a half before then. Lost to Giga Chikadze by KO, beat Daniel Pineda about 2.5 years ago, and then beat Kron Gracie about 4 years ago. So I think I am going to go with Hakeem Dawodu. I think he's going to be faster. When you have a guy like Cub Swanson who's 40 years of age, and then Hakeem Dawodu who's 32 years of age, I'm sure they're going to bring up the stat like I mentioned in my video quite a bit in all my breakdown videos where they'll show like the percentage win rate of guys who are like a certain age younger than these other guys. So I am going to go with Hakeem Dawodu. I think he's just going to be better on the feet. I think I don't know Cub Swanson's really going to be looking for takedowns here. I think he's just going to be better on the feet. I don't know if he finishes Cub Swanson because Cub Swanson's really tough, but I am going to go with Hakeem Dawodu in this matchup. 79% picked by Tapology, 68% by decision. I think that's probably the best bet here for this one, but Cub Swanson definitely still has a chance. I'm sure he's going to hang in there a little bit, but Hakeem Dawodu, I think, wins this one for sure. Up the card, we have Vicente Luque versus RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos. Vicente Luque coming off a very brutal loss against Jeff Neal. Lost that one by a very brutal KO. This is like the first time you really seen him get KO'd that badly, especially in that one. He took a lot of damage. I think he even got like a brain hemorrhage or like some kind of brain damage. So that was very scary to see. I think he was required to take like a year off or something like that. So that is kind of a little bit of a question mark for Vicente Luque coming in this matchup. A loss to Bilal Muhammad, kind of just got out wrestled. Didn't really open up too much on the feet because of the wrestling of Bilal Muhammad. Kind of just hindered his stand-up game a little bit more. Won by Darce choke against Michael Chiesa. Beat Tyrone Woodley by Darce choke as well, but they kind of traded on the feet for a little bit. Beat Randy Brown by KO there as well about 3 years ago. RDA, last fight was a win over Ryan Barberena. Won that one by sub. Completely out-wrestled him. Lost to Rafael Fizib. I think it was like the 4th or 5th round in that one. Just got caught and finished up on the ground. Beat Hanato Moicano by decision. Beat Paul Felder by split decision. And then lost to Michael Chiesa by decision as well. So I think I am going to go with Vicente Luque. And it is kind of worrying here. He's still 31 years of age. And after the brain hemorrhage, you do kind of have that worry for him about how he's going to take some shots and how he's going to approach this fight. But he's had a year off. I think he's taken the right time off. He's, again, still 31 years of age. RDA getting out there in age, almost 39. I don't think RDA is going to have the same ability to kind of hinder a guy like Vicente Luque, who's very good on the feet and is good defensively on the ground as well, like Bilal Muhammad did against Vicente Luque with that takedown threat. I know RDA has really good takedowns, pretty good on the feet as well, but I think Luque is going to be better on the feet, and I don't know if I see the threat from an RDA, especially at 39 years of age against a guy like Vicente Luque, especially on the ground. So, I mean, I am going to go with Luque here. I think he's going to land some really good shots on RDA, and you saw if McGhee was able to catch him with a left hook in their matchup and finish him off there. I think Luque can do the same here. I think probably in the second half of this fight, third, fourth, or fifth round, I think he's going to land a really good shot on RDA and finish him up. I'm sure RDA might get a takedown at some point. Maybe possible submission chance for Luque in this matchup, but again, off a very bad KO, took a year off. I think that's probably about the right time. Still relatively young. I want to say he's in that prime area for some of these guys, so it's not necessarily bad. Like if I saw like a guy like RDA who's 39 years of age who took that much damage and had like a brain hemorrhage, I'd be kind of worried. But I think Vicente Luque is, with the year off, I think he's going to be recovered, going to do very well against RDA. I think he ends up finishing him in the third or fourth or fifth round, probably the second half of this fight. I think probably third or fourth round is probably where I think Luque will probably get the win at. I think he catches RDA and just finishes him up on the ground. Maybe RDA probably shoots in for a bad takedown, maybe gets caught in a darce or something, and Luque wins that way. 62% picked by Luque. I think people are a little bit standoffish on him because of the brain injury, and then RDA has been looking somewhat impressive relatively recently. So I am going to go with Luque, 53% by KO within that 62%. I'm sticking with Luque. Let me know what you guys think about this card down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.